Hey guys, welcome back to Arry The Stag. TR Tony here, sat on a very murky Saturday afternoon actually, having done all my chores. So thought I would check in with you guys just to make sure you've had a really good week. So apologies, we've been off air a little bit during the week. We've been working like Trojans, and you can't see it because it's off camera at the moment, trying to get our new garage built. So literally it's been all hands to the pump. Grandad Jim, Harry and James and myself all building this thing, so we're hoping to get it done soon, and when we have it completed I'll share it with you. I won't do an update today. I think one or two of you have already seen the progress so far, and actually it doesn't look like we've done very much this week, despite loads of work going into it anyhow. So I haven't done a midweek video for a couple of weeks, so my apologies. We will get back on track once we've got the garage built, and then of course we can get really stuck into some good workshoppy stuff. So we're very excited about all of that, and we'll bring you up to date in the next few weeks, but making some good progress. Now, this week, Houston, we have a problem, as they said on Apollo 13. We sprung a leak in our radiator on the Triumph Stag this week on UES 591S. Well, I was a little bit disappointed. Couldn't work out quite what was going on. The red line came up on the old temperature gauge, so I was very mindful about that. We got it back home. We were only about a mile away from the house, so we haven't cooked it, luckily, but we took the radiator out, put it all back in, thinking we'd done it all, and then discovered a pretty big leak. We had thought it was just a hose problem, but looks like a bit of a core problem actually. And what's really interesting is, as I've got into this, I've discovered all sorts of things which I thought I'd share with you, because it turns out that this radiator we pulled out of the car was manufactured way back when in the 1970s. So it's an original radiator, would you believe, after all these years, made by Coventry Motor Fittings Company Limited, and I'll just show you the rad and you can have a look at that, and then I'll give you a little bit of background about Coventry Motor Fittings Company Limited to give you a bit more knowledge and understanding about that. So let's have a quick look at the problem. Okay, so this is the offending radiator that we pulled out of the car. It's a pretty standard Mark II version. The Mark I is slightly different in the configuration. I think the top kind of hose unit here is different and configured slightly differently. There are some I've seen on the internet also with a hole here, so I've avoided that on the one that I've seen I'm going to buy. This obviously is overflow, and if it boils up then that goes out. And on the top here we have the converted header tank on the car, so this goes off to the aluminium Stag Weber header tank that enables it as a replacement to the original plastic bottle that's down in the depths of the engine bay, and I think does great guns in keeping it a lot cooler than it would do otherwise. So okay, there's a few kind of telltale signs down here that we've saw. You can see it's had a good life. There's one or two dings and crumps in it, but that all seemed all right. If I just turn it over now, you can see the problem maybe in a little bit more detail. And actually, as if by magic, you can't really see much more detail. The problem was down here somewhere. We've got a big ding, and the water was absolutely pouring out the bottom here. So obviously you can just see the cores going across from tank to tank on either side, and so down here was where the water was coming out, and I tipped in about 11 litres, I think it was in the end, 11 litres of water, and it was just pouring straight through. So clearly the radiator had to be pulled out, which is what we've done, and we'll now be looking for a replacement one, as I mentioned, having done a little bit of internet searching already. I'll come back to the top of the rad in just a second. If I just show you the underneath first, for reasons that will become apparent. And on very close inspection, in fact you can see this at the back rather than at the front of the radiator. Here is the injury. I don't know if it's had some kind of projectile hit it, although it's hard to imagine because this is actually the engine side, so I don't know what quite has happened here, but something's got in, whether a stone got up there or something and broke through the matrix. But the core here underlying, I think, is the one that's actually busted. I showed you that one on the flip side on the front part of it earlier on. Now what I wanted just to point out was, if you are looking for a new radiator, just watch what you're looking for here, because these things here, the pegs, they rest on a rail at the front of the car and they're threaded, and through here comes the fan cover. You'll notice there's a semicircular fan cover when you look under the front of your car that stops the fan grounding on any foreign objects or things flying up underneath. But a lot of replacement radiators don't seem to have this threaded bar at the bottom, which obviously is two nuts tighten up on and hold it all fill together. And the actual fan plate itself, goes in between here, so it holds it nicely in place under the car. So it's just a little Arry the Stag top tip. When I started this channel, I really didn't think I'd get that excited about component parts of an engine bay, but this is the radiator, as I mentioned before, obviously. And just to point out, these are the retaining upper brackets that hook onto the front of the top underneath your bonnet and hold the thing to the car at the top here. I've not mentioned it until now, but here we are. I don't know if you can zoom in on this now really closely, but what fascinated me and quite pleased me was looking at this plaque that's actually riveted to the very top of the radiator. I don't know if you can read that, but it looks, after rubbing it down a bit, I had to clean it up a bit. Coventry Motor Fittings Company Limited, Coventry, and there's actually a serial number here, V, I think it is, 30790. Not actually signed as such, but I think that's a pretty interesting kind of bit of provenance about the actual radiator itself. And obviously this dates back to date of original manufacture, which would have been 1973. So this radiator has been in this car all this time. I don't suppose there's too many radiators that we buy today that would last that many years. So I decided to do a little bit of research because obviously this is a prestigious properly made radiator, enough to be properly signed off and coded here. Just zoom in on that so you can see it again, and given a serial number as well. So I'll just show you that. Ignore the doorbell going in the background, and let's just take a look at Coventry Motor Company's Coventry Motor Fixings Company Limited, as much as I could find to date. And if you've got any information, guys, I'd be very interested if you could feed that in, because I think this is very interesting stuff for Stag owners worldwide. So here we have the first kind of picture I could find for Coventry Motor Fittings Company Limited. As you can see, they date back, I think, just to the turn of the 1900s, going back many years, obviously. So they've been in business an awfully long time, and you can see some very well-known names there, Dennis and whatever, big cars, small cars, and all sorts of static, stationary, lighting, pumping, welding pumps as well. So it's really interesting just what the provenance of this kind of radiator parts manufacturer, radiator manufacturer is. They even went through the 50s. They've got some pretty cool diagrams here. You can see the definitely the American car influence, cool efficiency behind the hottest styling. So trying to aspire to be in the same league as these car manufacturers, and the products that they produced, I think, are fantastically good quality, and it's really great to see the kind of British engineering coming to the fore here. Moving on, again, various photographs and pictures I've managed to find. This was a slightly later one. Here they're offering a design and manufacturing service for the advanced automobile engineer. So I guess there was some consultancy and support to the motor trade, motor industry that they offered along the way as well. It's just fascinating to me, all this history from just looking at our one radiator in the Triumph Stag, as I mentioned previously. And yeah, lots of other graphics as well. It strikes me as the cooling design problems, as they say here, and the quantity radiator production. It's design in here that seems to be quite key in their unique selling proposition. At any time to put forward a suitable type of radiator for allied equipment for special requirements. And obviously these graphics are of their time. Flat tube blocks seem to be quite innovative for the time, and no doubt aided cooling, and was a little bit different to the mainstream ones that you could have ordered or bought at the time. A little bit more of a contemporary graphic here, looking at radiator production from A through to Z, and maybe a hint of how things were put together for, in this case, a CMF flat tube block, and how they constructed them. And yeah, looking at the text here, they do the whole job from design to delivery, and shows some of the raw materials that and the pressings that were involved, and the use of specialist jigs as well as flat tube blocks, and making things in large numbers such that they could really do the job very well and keep up with the high demand, I'm sure, from the British car industry as it was then. And as I mentioned earlier, even into some of the big commercial kind of Dennis, which I mentioned right at the front end of this piece, commercial radiators, man enough to go into some of the big lorries of their times. And it's just absolutely fascinating to see all this knowledge and history and background that you wouldn't even give second thought to possibly otherwise, other than me seeing that little plaque on the top of the Stag. And yeah, here we are, just a kind of finishing off a graphic. You get a sense for the manufacturing down there at the bottom. The factory workers there producing lots of radiators over the years. 3 illustrations below, typical production equipment, our Coventry factory, and ensuring the maintained precision and quality of CMF radiator blocks, in this case, during high speed, low cost production. And obviously we're a world leader in what they did, and knowledge and skill is kind of laced through this whole kind of journey with Coventry Motor Fittings Company Limited. I don't think they exist anymore. From what I can see, it seems they've gone out of business. As you, I guess, might expect, it was the Coventry Centre was a centre of excellence for automotive manufacture as well as component suppliers, and sadly I think all that skill, knowledge and expertise has been lost. But hopefully we've been able to resurrect a little bit more insight now as to what the industry was like and how it might fit with the rebuild of our Triumph Stags now, with a nod to the past, which I think is absolutely fascinating. And apparently, just to finish off, if you have one of their Coventry Motor Fittings radiators, then it makes you look really cool. So I don't know who the marketing agency was that they commissioned, but the young gentleman's got the message, at least our message, that for any cooling problems, come and see Coventry Motor Fittings Co. Limited. And a typical small car radiator there appended at the bottom right. So just a lovely, lovely feel of the history and the expertise, knowledge and skills, as I mentioned a few times, of what existed then compared to now in very different times. So guys, really, really interesting, wasn't it? I think on the face of it, such a simple piece of equipment at the front end of our Triumph Stag engine bay, and yet absolutely so much history and provenance behind it that I think is an absolute insight into the British auto manufacturing industry way back over the last few decades. So the plan for this now, I found a guy local to us. He's in Southampton. He's a guy called Paul. He's semi-retired. When I spoke to him the other day, he'd just come off the golf course, but is very keen to help us refurbish this. I don't think I can film him doing it. I'd love to be able to. I will mention it, but I think because of social distancing, it's going to be difficult to do that. But I will check in with him on that. So he's very kindly offered to do that. It's going to cost a couple of £100 to get it done. And the plan for this radiator, I think, is I'll save this one for UNY 49M when it comes back on the road, knowing that we've got a good radiator. And then with the existing Red Stag UES 591S, I'll purchase one this week and fit that so we're back up and running, and I'll show you what that looks like in due course. So there you go. That's it for this week. My apologies that we are only once a week at the moment. I will continue to issue my Saturday Sockets email though, so don't forget to sign up for your Arry The Stag badge of honour, which I can grab from behind. There we are. And if you've not got one yet, then go onto our website www.arrythestag.com/badge-of-honour. I'll put it on the bottom of the screen so you can remember. Get that, and you also get Saturday Sockets, which is an email of our off-camera shenanigans that goes on in the Arry The Stag household every week, and that goes out on a Saturday. So we've got a good following on that too, with lots of great dialogue from around the world, and I know people are helping each other out, which is really great, with things like aircon units and so on. That's a pleasure in store. I was talking to Mike over in the west coast of USA yesterday, and so I'll be coming back to you on that shortly about his air conditioning unit in the Triumph Stag that he's been refurbishing. So please do feel free to like, share, and most importantly subscribe, because otherwise you might miss miss out on that kind of interesting stuff that's coming out of Arry the Stag going forward. I wish you a great week. We're going to get back on that garage again. We will have it finished sooner or later, and when it does, I'm sure we'll be doing a lot more videos than we have done before. But we'll see you online on Arry the Stag very soon. All the best, guys. Cheers for now. Bye.